Working the night shift at a warehouse. The rules will haunt you forever. The clock struck midnight, and something shattered the silence of the warehouse, a dreadful echo that sent chills down everyone's spine. The shadows danced along the walls, each flicker of the fluorescent lights painting nightmare scenes, whispering secrets that screamed out for attention. All around, stacks of boxes loomed like ancient sentinels, holding dark desires within their cardboard confines. There was an air of dread, thick enough to slice through with a knife. People who had worked the night shift before knew, once the sun dipped past the horizon, this place took on a life of its own, a life that was eager to ensnare the unwary. Kathy felt it, the tightness in her chest as she maneuvered between aisles, her heart racing. Around her, the team's laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet. From the corner of her eye, she swore she saw movement, something gliding too smoothly from one shadow to another. Sweat trickled down her spine. She ignored it, right? Just her overactive imagination. But she couldn't shake that prickling sensation creeping up her arms. And then there were the whispers. Low, raspy murmurs that seemed to echo off the steel shelving, too soft to discern but loud enough to curl her fingers into fists. Every other week, tales floated around the break room about strange occurrences on the night shift, crates opening themselves, figures seen darting just out of view, and an old rumor about the Watcher. An eerie ghost said to haunt the warehouse. No one believed in such nonsense until they heard rattles, muffled cries, or caught glimpses of flickering shadows. One night, someone had actually seen it, a faint silhouette lingering near the loading dock, an observer frozen in the darkness. After that, no one spoke up again, they simply understood. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Kathy's stomach nodded as she heard a loud clang, a metal clashing sound coming from behind the storage rack, like a chain rattling in the dark. Panic gripped her heart. She peered around the corner, half expecting something terrible to leap out at her. Just a box toppled over, right? But it was the way it had fallen, almost like it purposely chose that moment, as if something unseen nudged it just to make her jump. In that moment, she felt it, a cold breath against the back of her neck, a sudden chill that set her hairs on end. She spun around, breath hitching. Nothing. Just the silence that felt heavier, almost suffocating. A heartbeat echoed in her ears, her own, perhaps. Or was it the sound of the Watcher, watching, waiting? She turned back to the aisle of boxes, a dread pooling deep in her gut. What if the stories were true? What if she wasn't alone? The air thickened, and she couldn't shake the feeling that, across the way, dark eyes were locked onto her every move. Kathy was on the brink of turning to the security desk when her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit up, and she glanced down to see a name pop up, a name she hadn't thought about in years. Call me. It was all it said. Her heart raced. Who would be calling her now? Did they know something? Did they somehow know that something was lurking just out of reach, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Kathy's heart raced, the spotlight of her phone's screen illuminating the name that felt like a lifetime ago. It couldn't be real. Thoughts spun chaotically in her mind, mingling with the darkness around her. Did she dare to call back? This place, this haunted warehouse, had already shaken her to her core. She pressed the phone tight against her ear, her fingers trembling. The silence screeched back at her, thick with waiting. Is this a prank? She whispered into the stillness. Who is this? A pause, heavy and unnerving, loomed on the other end. Just as she was about to hang up, the voice sliced through. Kathy, you need to get out. Her blood turned to ice. The intensity in that voice gripped her, sending sharp, jagged fears clawing at the inside of her chest. "What do you mean? Who are you?" "I know what's here," the voice continued, urgent, desperate. "It's coming for you," and then, silence. Not the kind that hung in the air, but a shuddering deadness that swallowed the call whole. She stared at her phone, dread swirling in her gut like a vortex, as another sound echoed through the now unnervingly quiet warehouse, a soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on metal. A shiver traveled down her spine. She turned slowly, glancing toward the back of the warehouse, where the shadows had grown darker, thicker. The once familiar aisles transformed into a maze of terror. Each breath came in quick, shallow bursts as she stepped forward, compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity. The tapping persisted, steady and relentless, wrapping around her senses like fog. "Is someone there?" she called out, her voice strained and quivering. The only response was the tapping, now punctuated by what sounded like quiet, barely audible laughter, high-pitched and wild, echoing from the alcoves. Kathy's feet moved against her will, pulling her deeper into the mouth of darkness, the walls whispering words she couldn't catch, words that tugged at memories she thought she had buried. As she turned another corner, she saw it, something shifting near the back exit. A silhouette, unmistakable and poised, stood against the bright exit light. It seemed to flow, long and unyielding, as if it were both part of the warehouse and completely separate from it. "The Watcher. Get out." She heard again, but it wasn't he, the voice on the phone this time. It was a chorus of voices, clamoring from shadows, echoing her own physical dread back to her. She froze, paralyzed between flight and confrontation. Suddenly, the figure turned, revealing a face that twisted and warped like something caught between dimensions. Those dark eyes, reflecting her terror back at her, seemed to reach out, hungry and eager. Time slowed, and the warehouse around her vanished, the only sound left being the thunder of her heart. Then, with a swift motion, her instincts kicked in. She turned and ran, sprinting down the eerily deserted aisle. Boxes toppled over in her wake, the chains rattling with her every step. She couldn't escape the feeling that something sinister was right behind her, its breath hot on her neck. "I need to find someone, anyone," she panted, searching desperately for the security desk, hoping they could help her make sense of this terror. Just as she rounded the last corner, the office came into view, but she hesitated. What if the Watcher had other plans? What if no one could help at all? Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the door, light flooding her vision. But when she stepped inside, her heart dropped. The desk was empty, and a single note lay in the center. "She's here. You shouldn't have come back." Kathy's blood ran cold. The feeling of being watched washed over her again, more overwhelming than ever. She heard the laughter grow louder, mocking her. In this warehouse of shadows, it seemed she was the one truly trapped, caught between the past and whatever lurked in the dark, but somewhere, in the edges of her frayed sanity, a flicker of defiance ignited. She would uncover the truth. She turned back toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited her in the corners of that wretched warehouse, knowing full well that the most horrifying discovery was yet to come. What was the Watcher waiting for? And did it have more than just eyes set on her? Kathy's breath came in short gasps as she stumbled back through the door, the note's words seared into her mind. "She's here." Who was she, and why did it feel like she was referring to Kathy herself? The sharp pang of fear pressed down on her chest like a vice. She turned, steeling her resolve, and stepped back into the corridor, determined to face whatever lay ahead. The rhythmic tapping echoed around her, taunting, as if it had grown bolder since her entrance. It sent a chill skimming along her spine, a reminder that she wasn't alone. "Get a grip," she muttered under her breath, willing her legs to keep moving. She rushed down the aisles, the dull metallic scent of the warehouse mingling with the dust in the air, each inhale turning her stomach. The shadows stretched around her, crouching close to the ground like predatory animals, waiting to pounce. Another gust sent shivers racing through her. The laughter danced behind her, haunting and relentless. Was it her own? Was she losing her mind? The thought sent panic rising like bile. "Stay calm," Kathy, she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the weight of the darkness. Twisting her phone tightly in her hand, she glanced toward the last aisles before the back exit. She could escape, but it felt as if the very walls were conspiring to keep her trapped. Something was moving there, crouched and breathing, a silhouette that flickered against the faint light. "Who is there?" she called, her voice steadier than the quaking in her heart. Silence followed, but the tapping resumed, now louder, almost insistent. Every instinct urged her to flee, yet curiosity pulled her toward the source, a cruel battle raging within. As she drew closer, the figure materialized, and her stomach dropped. It was not just one shadow, but several. They twisted and undulated, forming faces, mouths stretched wide in grimaces of hunger or perhaps dread. They weren't human, but neither were they wholly alien. Each face bore incredible familiarity, mirroring past friends and shadowy figures from her history, the lives she had touched, and the lives now lost. No, 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 she shook her head, clawing at her mind, as fragments of memories flooded back, their laughter that had faded, the stories cut short. Each face seemed to silently chastise her, accusing her of returning to this abyss. Kathy turned sharply, her hands trembling as the laughter surged to a crescendo, echoing off cold steel. She had to escape. They were reminding her of her failures, the ones that had pushed her here, to this cursed place. The air thickened, twisting into knots of desperation. She spun around, now running for the nearest exit, hoping it led to salvation from the phantoms. But as she reached the threshold, the doors slammed shut with a force that reverberated through the entire warehouse, the clang causing her to stumble back. The shadows shifted, coalescing into a form, a figure stepping closer, wrapped in tendrils of shadow that flickered like flames. "You cannot leave until you remember," it hissed, the voice a blend of several she recognized. "You have unfinished business," Kathy gasped, her heart pounding. Her own past was woven into the fabric of this darkness, each regret binding her to it. The realization struck like a thunderclap. She had to confront it, to uncover what she had tried to bury. She forced herself to look directly into the mass of shadows, into the depths of betrayal and loss. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice rising over the haunting laughter. The shadows flickered again, revealing more faces, more laughter erupting, as if they were taunting her for being naive. "To set us free," the figure whispered, drawing close enough for her to feel the chills scrape against her skin. "Only then can you break the cycle." As realization washed over her, the faces began to dissolve, slipping back into the darkness. But their presence lingered, a reminder of what she had to uncover. Kathy stumbled back, breathless, her eyes wide with fear and understanding. The way forward was shrouded in threat, but somewhere in that menacing labyrinth lay the key she needed. The confrontation was approaching, and this nightmare was only beginning. What lay in wait for her in the heart of the shadows? In the silence, a deeper truth hinted at something far more sinister, something she had yet to fully comprehend. The laughter swelled, growing louder, urging her downward. How could she ever confront what she feared most? Kathy's heart raced as the laughter bounced around her, gaining volume and malicious glee. She pressed her hands to her ears, as if blocking out their taunts could shatter the hold they had on her. Her eyes darted around the warehouse, searching for an escape, yet each path felt equally treacherous. The shadows shifted once more, knitting into different shapes, weaving a tapestry of her deepest regrets. A voice cut through the chaos, chilling and sharp. "Remember us? You thought you could forget." It wasn't just any voice, it was familiar, a creeping echo of her past. It sounded like Mia, her childhood friend, a soft laugh trapped forever in a cruel loop of mockery. Kathy clenched her teeth, pushing back against the suffocating darkness. "What do you want?" Her voice trembled, but she choked out the words. "What unfinished business?" A heavy silence fell, the laughter recoiling into whispers before it sparked back, now rife with urgency. The figure cloaked in shadows stepped closer, each movement deliberate, as if savoring the moment. "We want you to understand the cost of your choices. The lives you turned away from, they demand recognition." Each word sank into her, causing an ache deep in her chest. Mia's face flared before her eyes, the last summer they had spent together surfacing like a ghost, the laughter, the secrets, the heartbreak when she had walked away to follow a new path. It was for my own good. Kathy cried out suddenly, frustration boiling over. I had to move on. But the shadows only folded in tighter, the figures writhing in tortured shapes. You moved on while they lingered, the voice hissed, echoing with resentment. You cut the ties, but the ties never cut you. We exist in your shadows. Kathy gasped, feeling the truth slice like glass through her skin. The fear intertwined with guilt twisted in her gut harder than before. How do I set you free? She managed to ask, each word like a dagger lodged in her throat. The figure paused, granting her a moment of stillness. Face your truth. It begins with the lost. It extended a gaunt hand, beckoning her closer. Will you? Before she could respond or think of a way to escape, the shadows surged, pulling her in as if drawn by a gravitational force. Everything around her began to spiral, memories clashing together in a storm of emotion: laughter, love, loss. Each face she saw was another ounce of weight dragging her down. Stop! She shouted, panic surging where her heart once beat calmly. I can't bear this. Her legs felt heavy, rooted to the ground, as the shadows bore down harder, whispering secrets she had buried far too deep, and then, out of the maelstrom, a clear voice pierced through the chaos, righteous and determined. You need to remember Mia. You need to remember her. Kathy's heart stuttered. Mia. The memories flooded back, flashes of laughter and dreams exchanged in candlelight. But they were intertwined with regret: the night they fought, the night Mia had needed her most, and Kathy had turned away. Mia. Kathy cried, the name torn from her throat. The shadows thinned ever so slightly, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Find her, the voice urged, or remain lost among the shadows forever. Kathy's resolve began to solidify, a newfound strength igniting within her. But as she reached out into the gathering darkness, she heard a deeper rumble beneath, a warning. You think one memory will save you? And just like that, the laughter exploded once again, a cacophony that reverberated and vibrated through the very bones of the warehouse, wrapping her in cold dread. The door behind her glowed, an inviting light contrasting sharply with the despair around her. But did she dare leave this place? Or every moment spent away from the shadows would seal the fate of those who had been lost? She stood at the precipice, the choice weighing heavily upon her shoulders. Would she face her past, or would she run, leaving it all behind? With her heart pounding and shadows creeping closer, Kathy took a step toward the door, but the darkness loomed, whispering promises. That made her hesitate. What awaited her in the light? And would she truly find what she had been searching for, or plunge deeper into a nightmare? Kathy took one shaky step towards the door, heart pounding like a drum, the shadows at her back whispering her flaws and failures. The glowing door felt both welcoming and unnerving, a slice of daylight in this sea of darkness. She hesitated, a cold sweat trickling down her spine. What awaited her beyond those doors? Was it freedom or a deeper descent into despair? Do you really think you can hide? The voice hissed, now echoing all around her, reverberating against the cold concrete walls. You cannot escape your truth, Kathy. You've tried for so long. Each word dripped with venom, the shadows shifting menacingly, swirling in chaotic patterns as memories surged: faces of old friends, a scornful look, tears left unshared. The air thickened as her hesitation grew, weighted with dread. What if she walked through that door only to find herself alone, totally stripped of her identity? Don't be foolish. The voice boomed again, louder, angrier this time. You think you're ready? Kathy squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the flood of images. A sharp pain blazed in her chest as she remembered Mia surrounded by friends, the laughter as bright as the sun, but it faded when she recalled her own lonely nights, the silence that echoed where joy should have been. Suddenly, amidst her regret, a flicker of defiance ignited inside her. I won't let you keep me here. She shouted, as if daring the darkness to challenge her. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if shocked by her sudden surge of defiance. She could see the outlines shivering, anxious, before they lunged forth again with renewed intensity. "Run!" they shrieked. "Run as fast as you can. But there's nowhere to hide from what you've done." Kathy's resolve hardened. She was sick of living in fear. Sick of letting her own choices haunt her like ghosts. Gripping her fists tightly, she stepped forward, her heart racing against the cacophony of laughter and longing. As she crossed the threshold, the shadows reached out, tendrils tangling around her wrists icy and possessive. With a wild cry, she pushed through the door. The light scorched against her skin like fire, but every pulse of warmth sent shockwaves of relief through her veins. She stumbled into a narrow alley, the sun barely filtering through the overhanging buildings. A new world unfolded, vibrant and raw, but tinged with uncertainty. Her breath caught as she scanned her surroundings, half expecting the shadows to follow her. But then, she noticed something strange, a shadow casting differently against the alley wall, moving independently of the surrounding darkness. It wavered and twisted, forming a shape she could almost recognize. It was a figure, small and familiar. "Mia?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Is that you?" The shadow paused, then shifted and flickered like a failing bulb. Kathy felt a tug at her heart, a longing so profound it almost hurt. "You need to find me," came a voice, faint but clear. "You can't leave things as they are." "What do you mean?" Kathy gasped, transfixed. The world around her faded, swallowed by this single moment. The shadow grew dimmer, fading against the wall, and Kathy could feel the weight of her regrets resurfacing. "You made a choice, now you must face the consequences. Find me before it's too late." Just before it vanished entirely, the final echoes of Mia's laugh rippled through the air, bittersweet and haunting. Kathy stood paralyzed in the alley, her pulse roaring in her ears, battling between the urge to follow the shadow, to chase the ghost of her past, or to retreat into the fading light. What truth lay ahead? What darkness awaited her if she turned back? A choice lay before her again, but this time, it felt more real, more urgent. Would she face her truth, or would she continue to run? The answer lurked just in front of her, elusive but tantalizing. She took a shaky breath, ready to follow where her heart might lead her, or perhaps to a fate worse than the shadows she had already escaped. Kathy's heart raced as she stood in the alley, the intensity of the moment pressing against her like a steel wall. She could still hear Mia's voice in her head, each echo wrapping around her like a vine strangling the last remnant of her courage. The alley felt cavernous, menacing, shadows looming just out of sight. "Find me before it's too late." It was both a plea and a warning, and Kathy could feel the weight behind it threatening to crush her. What consequences had she left unresolved? What darkness awaited her if she didn't act? The murky shapes coiled at the edges of her mind, whispering of past mistakes, of choices that lingered like a bad odor she couldn't shake. She could almost see them, twisting in the corners of her vision, but each time she turned, they slipped back into the darkness, taunting her. "I have to find you, Mia," she shouted, the sound slicing through the silence. A flicker against the wall caught her attention, a shimmer that felt alive. Kathy moved closer, drawn to it like a moth to flame. The closer she got, the more the air crackled with energy, a rhythm pounding through her veins that mimicked her frantic heart. "Mia!" she called again, desperation coloring her voice. "Show yourself." And then she saw it. A shadow, no longer fleeting but taking a definite form. Mia was there, her silhouette etched against the alley wall, eyes glinting with a strange mixture of hope and fear. "It's real, Kathy," Mia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm here. You need to understand." The weight of every decision Kathy had made pressed heavy on her shoulders, binges, late nights spent hurting herself instead of remembering the good times. She swayed, stumbling over her choices, feeling as though she might collapse under their burden. "What do I need to understand?" she whispered, tears pricking at her eyes. "I can't keep living in this shadow. I thought I could escape but you haven't escaped, Mia interrupted, the urgency in her voice sending chills through Kathy. You buried the truth instead of embracing it. That's what keeps us apart. You need to confront what you did to me. Confront? The concept felt foreign and frightening, as if it challenged the very foundation of Kathy's existence. I can't. I thought I could forget one set you free. It holds you prisoner. You need to go back. Kathy felt her insides twist. Go back where? To that familiar place of pain. But even as she battled her instincts, a part of her felt that maybe Mia was right. Maybe the only way to truly step into the light was to face the darkness head-on. Find the place, Mia continued, the shadows around her seeming to pulse with her words. You'll know it. That's where you'll find me. That's where the truth lies. Before Kathy could react, the shadow flickered violently, and Mia's laughter filled the air, bittersweet yet beckoning. The moment felt like a grasping hand slipping away, and Kathy lunged, reaching for the darkness. But the shadow faded, leaving behind a feeling of profound emptiness, a cavernous space inside her that echoed with unfulfilled promises and shattered dreams. In that instant, Kathy felt a sudden awareness she wasn't just searching for Mia. She was searching for herself. Where do I go? She pleaded, half expecting an answer, but the alley remained silent, the ghosts around her now thickening, entwining with her uncertainty. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that beckoned and threatened all at once. The figure of Mia flickered once more, a distant beacon guiding her towards something she couldn't yet understand. A new decision surged within her, the urge to take the first step became palpable. Can you face the truth of your past? A question lingered in the air, urging her to take that leap. Kathy took a deep breath, and with her heart in her throat, she murmured, I'll find you, Mia. I promise. But as she turned to leave, a sudden crash echoed from the darkness. A metallic clank, sharp and jagged, sent a jolt through her whole body as another shadow emerged, hulking and ominous, blocking her way. This wasn't just any shadow. It was a shadow of something monstrous, something she felt she was failing to escape. What had she unleashed by trying to confront her fears? And could she truly face whatever lay hidden in the depths of her past? As the figure advanced, the path before her narrowed, and once again she faced a choice, to confront the fear or to flee. The darkness loomed, pregnant with secrets, waiting for her next move. Kathy's breath hitched as the hulking shadow loomed closer, sending a chill down her spine. The metallic crash echoed anew, clashing against the silence of the alley, making her heart pound like a war drum. Shadows danced around her, alive with anticipation. She could feel a darkness pulsing, hungry, ready to devour her doubts and fears. Who is there? She stammered, forcing the words out through a dry throat. The figure didn't respond. It surged forward, details coming into view, jagged edges and elongated limbs clawing at the edges of reality. It felt more like a manifestation of all her unresolved guilt, monstrous and demanding. Kathy's instincts kicked in. She stepped back, but the alley constricted around her, trapping her in a space that felt increasingly claustrophobic. Mia, I can't do this. She cried out, the weight of her past crashing down over her like thick fog. Just then, a flicker of movement broke her gaze, a momentary flicker of light struggling against the encroaching darkness. Could it be more than just a figment of her anxiety? Could Mia's specter still lead her home? Her heart raced with the dual fear of being consumed by this monstrous shadow and the failure of not fulfilling her promise to Mia. Run, Kathy. A voice creaked from deep within her mind, echoing like a ghost from her past. It was her conscience, urging her to move despite the fear paralyzing her limbs. With a sudden burst of defiance, she turned and sprinted down the alley, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The sharp sound of that eerie laughter followed her, a hollow mockery. In the depths of her heart, she feared the laughter belonged not just to Mia, but to the demons she had buried as well. As she raced, memories crept in like tendrils of smoke, flashes of her past mistakes, people she had hurt, promises broken. Each memory felt like hands grasping at her, pulling her back into the darkness from which she was trying to escape. Find the place. Mia's words looped in her mind, pushing her faster. She didn't know what place Mia meant, but it was a promise she would grasp just as fiercely as she grasped the moment of clarity amidst the chaos. There was a truth waiting for her, one that might just set her free. In a moment of clarity, she remembered the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town where they used to hang out, where they laughed, and where everything took a turn for the worst. That's it. She gasped, hardly aware of where her feet were taking her. The laughter from the shadows amplified, twisting into a deeper, gravelly tone that echoed in her ears. She could feel the shadow behind her closing in, its presence suffocating, grinding against her. You are not going to escape this. It seemed to roar, each syllable vibrating in the alley walls. With those words echoing in her mind, she suddenly realized she was out of breath and perhaps out of time. She was almost at the warehouse, an enormous hulking beast at the end of the street, light spilling through the cracks like the promise of dawn. But just as the building came into view, a thick shadow darted in front of her, blocking her path. Nowhere to run, the shadow mocked, the wind picking up and swirling around her like a storm. It wasn't just the threat ahead, it was everything that had followed her here, the burden of truth, the weight of accountability. It stood firm and resolute, just as the past had always done. Kathy felt her heart pound in her chest. This was it. Was she strong enough to confront what lay before her? The relentless shadow pulsed with anger and regret, and she felt small beneath its looming presence. With one last breath, her voice came out strong, I want to let you win. I will face the truth. The words ignited something within her, a flicker of light, a determination that sent a surge through her veins, but even as she braced herself for the battle ahead, darkness enveloped her, and she wondered what price she would pay to meet Mia again. As the shadows closed in, a chilling question cut through the thick veil, was confronting the truth really the answer, or simply another way to seal her fate forever? With the din of the night and her own racing thoughts drowning her, she made a choice. The echoes of her decision settled heavily around her. Would it lead to salvation or damnation? Kathy barely had time to process her own words before the shadow lunged. Something rippled through the darkness, crackling like electricity in the charged air. Just as the figure's claws reached for her, a jarring sound shattered the tension. An old door creaked open. Kathy! A voice broke through the veil of fear. It was Jake, her old friend from high school. He stepped into the alley, his face a mix of concern and confusion. What are you doing out here? But Kathy couldn't just stand and explain. She darted past him, her mind racing. It's not safe. We have to go. Jake's confusion morphed into alarm as he turned to see the shadow flickering in the dim light. What the hell is that? He shouted, backing away. Just move. Kathy urged, grabbing his arm and pulling him with her toward the warehouse. As they neared the entrance, she felt a surge of hope. They could find shelter inside, somewhere to regroup, somewhere that held their lost laughter and fractured memories. Inside, the stale air brushed against her skin like cold fingers, and the faint scent of oil and dust filled her lungs. Illuminated only by the faint glow of moonlight filtering through cracked windows, the space felt both familiar and unsettling. Shadows seemed to stretch and retract, waiting, hungry for their next move. Do you hear that? Jake whispered, his voice laden with dread. Kathy froze, straining to listen. The echo of laughter drifted through the air, tinkling like shattered glass. It was a sound reminiscent of better times, times that played cruel tricks on her mind now. Mia. She called out, the name slipping from her lips as a quiet prayer. A moment later, the laughter transformed, it morphed into a cacophony, a haunting riddle mocking her attempts at connection. Kathy, the voice rippled through the building, teasing her, wrapping cold tendrils around her heart. Stop it. Kathy screamed, fists clenched. You're not real. You're just a memory. All memories have a price, Jake murmured, his gaze locking onto something lurking in the shadowed corners. A flicker of movement caught his eye. What if she's trying to tell you something? In that moment, the air thickened. The shadow that had pursued her in the alley now gathered at the far end of the warehouse, swirling and pulsating as if alive. Breathing. Waiting. Kathy felt the tremors of a truth she had avoided all her life. I can't face what I did. Jake stepped closer, his voice low. You'll never be free unless you do. Shut up. Kathy snapped, but the anger rang hollow. Inside her, a battle raged between fear and the desperate need for resolution. The laughter morphed again, echoing around her like an incantation feeding off her indecision. You have to confront it. You have to set it right. The shadow leaped forward, more tangible now, reaching for her with a ghostly howl. Its grasp was not just of darkness, it was composed of all those choices she wished she could take back. Kathy's chest tightened as the realization sunk in. Was she really ready to confront the worst parts of herself? As if sensing her turmoil, the shadow pulsated, the grinding of nightmares becoming tangible words. You can't hide, Kathy. You owe her. You owe us all. In that moment of clarity, Kathy understood. The path she had denied all along, the truth she had buried in shame and regret, was all that lay between her and freedom. It wasn't just Mia she needed to make amends with, it was herself. But the visceral fear gripped her heart tighter. If she turned to face her past, would it embrace her or consume her whole? With every fiber of her being, she whispered, I will. I will face the truth. But as the shadows swirled closer, their laughter echoed darker, feeding off her resolve. What would happen when she finally stepped into the light of her own secrets? Would she find redemption, or would the ghost of her past drag her back into the depths of despair? The laughter froze in the air, stretching thin like a fragile thread ready to snap. Kathy's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out every other sound, every distant memory. Her breaths came in short gasps, tightening the knot in her chest as fear wrestled with her resolve. Jake, she started, her voice shaky, searching for the connection she so desperately needed. What if she really is trying to tell me something? What if I can't face it? Then you'll never escape it. Jake's eyes shone with a fierce light, determination battling his own fear. You either confront it or let it consume you. The shadow flickered closer, clawed fingers stretching toward her, whispering her name in a twisted cacophony of voices, some familiar, some not. Shadows from her past, whispering a series of guilt-laden regrets. The laughter morphed into sobs, chilling her blood. Kathy stepped back, one foot sliding over cracked concrete as she stumbled. I can't do this. She shouted, the words lashing out, almost in protest against her own desperation for the truth. Maybe you can't, Jake replied, his strength wavering. But you have to try. He moved, stepping around her, holding his ground as the swirling darkness pressed in. I won't let you face this alone. Kathy's mind raced. She had always been alone in her struggles, hadn't she? The shadow began to circle them, a vortex of despair intermingled with fleeting memories of happier days. For every ghost they faced, something hidden in her heart ached to break free. Jake's presence anchored her, but she could feel the pulse of the shadow, each heartbeat synchronized with her own. It sensed the girl she used to be, a glimpse into her past life before everything changed. The memory of Mia flickered again, the warmth of friendship now wrapped in the cold shroud of regret. Where are you, Mia? She whispered, her voice trembling. What do you want from me? The shadows pulsed and twisted, forming a phantom of Mia before her, a mix of deceit and innocence, stirring emotions deep in her soul. The expression frozen on Mia's face reflected pain, but also something that looked like understanding. Kathy's heart raced. Perhaps this was her chance to listen. Mia. The apparition lifted a hand, a gesture of warning, and the shadows flared, rushing at Kathy like a raging storm. Run! Jake shouted, pulling her back just in time. The wave of darkness crashed against the wall behind them, causing the entire structure to shudder. Kathy grabbed his arm tightly. I can't keep running. I need to. The laughter erupted again, now accompanied by screams. They were all merging, a whirlwind of emotions. You're too late, Kathy. You can't escape who you are. No. Kathy shouted, shaking her head fiercely. I want to be defined by this. But with each word, she felt the weight of her past pressing down, dragging her toward the darkness, threatening to swallow her whole. Jake! She cried, the edges of her voice tearing. Help me! His grip tightened around her. Fight, Kathy. You have to fight for yourself. In that moment, a small flicker of defiance ignited inside her. She closed her eyes, centering herself. I'm not afraid of you. I owe her the truth, not just to me, but to everyone I loved and lost. The shadows hesitated, as if her newfound courage disrupted their hold. Jake moved beside her, and together they stood firm against the dark tide. Take a step forward, Kathy. We can face this together. The darkness hesitated, swirling and flickering as if unsure. But as Kathy took a step forward, feeling the air shift, the shadow lurched toward her, rage and despair embodied. Will you dare to face us? The shadow screeched, an amalgamation of every guilt-laden figure in her life. The multitude of voices clashed, drowning in her own steady heartbeat, pulsing with determination. I will. She shouted, the words reverberating against the walls of the warehouse. The laughter fell silent, replaced by a stillness that screamed. The shadows paused, and suddenly Kathy felt a shift, almost a tether connecting them to her inner turmoil. She took another step, and then another, ready to face the echoes that threatened to pull her into oblivion. But could she really unravel the truth from the agony they bore? As she prepared to confront the specters of her past, the shadows coiled around her like a noose, threatening to squeeze the light from her. Would she break free? Or would the truth deliver a final, devastating blow? Kathy's heart raced like a wild bird trapped in a cage. The shadows twisted around her, tight and unforgiving, each flicker a reminder of her past. Jake stood beside her, his presence a sturdy anchor in the storm of torment threatening to drown her. I want to let you face this alone, he said, cheeks drawn tight, his own fear palpable yet dwarfed by his resolve. Together, we can do this, Kathy said, her voice trembling but firm. I need to face the truth. I must stop running. With that declaration, a resolve began to forge through the confusion, lighting a path through the shadows. As she pushed against the encroaching darkness, feeling the pulse of its cold energy, memories began to swirl around her. There was laughter, warmth, and voices that once felt like home. The warmth faded into a low murmur, though, turning grim and accusatory, a mixture of shadows and memories woven together, taunting her. You left us, they whispered, like a haunting melody entwined with pain, but this time, Kathy stood firm, her chin tilted defiantly. I didn't know how to help. I thought moving on was best. The shadows paused, twisting uncertainly at her words. The fear remained, a roar in her ears, but so did determination. Jake stepped forward, his voice clear. Don't let that fear drown you, Kathy. Speak their names. Kathy's breath hitched. Mia, I failed you. The words broke, spilling into the air like a confession. She felt the weight loosening, grief bleeding from the shadows into something new, an uncoiling knot in her chest. I turned my back on you when you needed me the most. I thought I was protecting myself, but I see now it hurt us both. The shadows flickered, and for a moment, Kathy thought she could hear a faint echo of Mia's voice within them, the laughter they had shared, the dreams they had talked about. I'm not who I was then, she cried, her voice lifting, filtering through the haze. I want to make it right. With each word, something shifted. The shadows paused, swirling, folding inward. The air grew dense. You think you can absolve your sins with mere words? Kathy shook her head, stepping closer to the heart of the darkness. No, I need to own them. The intensity of the moment peaked, shadows writhing in response. I will not let you haunt me anymore. I accept my failures. I accept our losses. Jake nodded, adding his voice, and we will never forget. We honor you. The shadows twisted, contorted, but now not with rage but with something wretchedly tender. Suddenly, the darkness started to fray at the edges, like a tattered book unraveling. "You have to understand," a voice echoed, but it was softer, almost pleading now. "Tell me." Kathy urged, tears streaming down her cheeks, freed by the weight of honesty. "How can I help you find peace?" Faces from her past emerged, twinkling, yet haunting. Their expressions softened, merging into the figure of Mia, radiant even through the shadows. "You must forgive yourself to set us free," she whispered, the light of understanding in her eyes. A profound ache filled Kathy's soul, her heart expanding and breaking in tandem. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I couldn't save you and I let myself drown in the guilt. I'm here now, I promise." With that admission, everything coalesced into a blinding light. The shadows crumpled inwards, melting like held breath, flickering like candle flames caught in sudden wind. The brightness enveloped her, flooding her senses and igniting relief. Kathy stood in the aftermath, breathless, as the air around her shimmered. The warehouse transformed from a dark, twisted labyrinth into a canvas brushed with light and lingering echoes. The laughter remained, but now felt like a warm embrace, a promise of remembrance. Jake stood beside her, an amazed smile breaking through as the remnants of the night's darkness lifted. "You did it," he whispered, awe mingling with joy. "I think we did it," she replied, heart swelling. "They're free and maybe I am too." As dawn broke outside, soft light filtering in through the cracks, it felt like the true beginning of a new chapter. Kathy took a deep breath, and slowly, joy surfaced to balance the heartache. And in that moment, the whispers of the past turned to a gentle reminder of who she was, a reflection of the lives she had touched and those she loved. The shadows might have haunted her, but they no longer defined her. "Let us go home," she said, gripping Jake's hand, ready to embrace whatever came next. With every step, the light grew stronger, illuminating their way toward healing and understanding. Don't let this moment slip away. Make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your thoughts, so flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps this community thriving.